Good evening. I call this regular meeting to order at 6:30 PM. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Rodriguez. Whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Rodriguez. Adrian, please call the roll.
Commissioner Shea? Commissioner Lotz?
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Present.
Vice Chair Barantes? And Chair Duong?
Present. Okay, now we're moving on to the approval of agenda order. Are there any objections to the agenda order? Okay, there are none. The agenda order is approved. Okay. And is there a motion to approve the agenda order?
We're all set, so no need for a motion since there were no objections.
Oh, okay. So now we'll have a few announcements by Community Services Assistant Director, Matthew Morales-Stevens.
All right, tonight's meeting is live streamed on Cable Channel 3 and our online platforms. If you wish to address the Community Services Commission during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk, Adrian Franquez. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive Community Services Commission agendas, please email your request to cscommission@sgch.org.
Great. So this is the public comment section of this meeting. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the Community Services Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Community Services Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. Adrian, do we have any public comments for tonight's meeting?
We do not.
Okay. Okay, so now we're moving on to the approval of minutes. The minutes are a record of the official actions taken at the Community Services Commission meetings on November 4th, 2024. I do have one small change to that. I noticed that if you go to, well, this is not numbered, but if you go to the minutes section, it says that Chair Dong adjourned the meeting at 7:56 PM. I was absent on that meeting for medical reasons. So whoever, I guess the Vice Chair Barantes was here, so perhaps you can update that to Vice Chair Barantes. Okay. So Matthew, do we have any public comments on the action item?
We do not.
Okay. So the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Community Services Commission regular meeting of Monday, November 4th, 2024?
Motion to approve the minutes.
And apologies, if we can just make the motion with the
Amendment.
amendment, correct?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the amendment.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I'll take the vote. Commissioner Shea?
I was absent, I'll just abstain.
So as long as you've read through and you agree with everything, similar to Chair Dong, since she wasn't here, she can still vote on the minutes. So you can either choose to abstain or you can, or you can choose to vote.
I'll just abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lotz?
I approve.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Barantes is absent. Chair Dong?
Approve.
So motion passed by a vote of 3 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention, and 1 absent.
Good. Moving on to section item 4A, Youth Ambassador Application Review. Staff at this point will provide an update on the Youth Ambassador applications that we've received. The commission will either appoint the youth ambassadors or schedule interviews for another date. And this is where Matthew will provide a brief presentation.
Great. So we received about 6 applications.
Yay!
Yes. So all of the changes clearly worked. At the time that I posted the agenda, we had 1 application. So I left it vague and didn't have the interviews because I didn't think we were going to receive any at that point. So I left it as an appointment or schedule interviews to leave the option open. And then they all came flooding in between Thursday, mostly Friday. I received one that came in, I think, 2 minutes before the deadline, so they were cutting it close. And then I did receive 2 that came in after the deadline. So one just a few minutes after the deadline, and then one that evening. So they were due Friday at noon, but I received one closer to 6. So I guess we can start with the first 2 to determine if you would like to accept them. I didn't bring them today because I wanted it just to be neutral to where you didn't know who they were. And so the commission can either decide to have staff move forward with scheduling those interviews with the 2 that submitted it late, or just keep them from that and invite them to apply next time.
I would say we include them. However, if while we're deliberating and then we're thinking about, or they're probably on par with the ones who applied prior to the deadline, we'll give priority to the ones who applied prior to the deadline.
Yeah, I do agree with that. As long as you just sort of earmark which of those 2 applications came in slightly late, then we'll, if we create I think, are we still doing all the questions, the same questions for everyone? Okay.
Correct.
So then we'll be able to mark it up that way.
Yeah, as long as hopefully we can schedule them on the same day or close to the same day. If, we have to make a special day just for somebody who also applied late, then I would say to toss that one, my opinion.
Great.
Is it possible to have all 6 interviews on the same day? Or,
Yeah, so our recommendation, since it would need to be a special meeting to host the interviews, is just to offer them the one day. So they would have the exact same notice via email. This is the day, this is the time that you need to arrive, kind of take it or leave it type of opportunity. They would have a week to plan ahead, so it's not like they're getting 2 days advance notice. And then if there's some sort of extenuating circumstance, then we can pass it along to the commission. You can decide at that point. But as far as what we would be communicating to them, it would be, unfortunately, hopefully we'll catch you next time type of message.
And are we thinking like 20 minutes, like keep it to 2 hours basically? And that is if all 6 actually show for that 2-hour block. I would say we probably don't need to go too deep on them past 20 minutes. That's my thought.
I mean, that's ideal. I don't know how it will be once we get there. You know what I mean? I'd say probably shoot for 20, but budget for 30 per. I'm just anticipating because it'll be even the changes between interviewees, right? They would have to step out and step back in, and then would have to get it going. I would say probably just to be sure. Because I think any less than 20 minutes, definitely. Actually, even 20 minutes is very fast. If you want it really, I mean, our questions are pretty good. If you want to go in depth, it might be tough for us to just go 20 minutes on them. Just my thoughts.
well, I think, to your point, I think there are a couple of interviewees who might just drop off on that day, so we might not get a full slate of 6. If we get 20 minutes per person, that's 2 hours. Less than 6, then we can, wiggle room for 20 to 30. We can also just state in the interview form to, provide 2 minutes of answer and Q and A, or 3 minutes per question. I forget how many questions we had on our list. I think we had a list of 4 or 5 questions that we had pre-approved.
I'd have to revisit the
Revisit.
question list.
Yeah.
But
So
it-
let's look at that again. Mhm.
It's 5 of us and 3 minutes each. It's like 15 minutes and 20 minutes maximum for each candidate. Should be good.
Yeah. During the previous youth ambassador interviews, they actually had a timer to where they could see if they were running out of time, and then everyone was also held to the same standard, and
Right.
it was an easier cutoff for the commission to where they could just point to the, the timer being up rather than having to kind of abruptly cut them off. So if you'd like to do that, we can just make it a clean 15-minute, and then Adrian and I can kind of say, oh, unfortunately, your time is up. If for some reason it takes them all 15 minutes to answer one question, which could happen, then you'll have a cleaner break without you all having to necessarily do the cutoff.
Is it possible to do 2 things? One is to give them one of the answers that they can submit prior. So it'll be us already looking at how they answer one question at least. Maybe, I don't know, if it's a intro or profile, so at least we get ahead on that one. And then second is if we can get their profiles prior to the interview so that now we would be more prepared in terms of what we ask them specifically based on the questions that we have.
You mean their application? Or you mean their profile?
I mean, but
Have them submit something ahead?
I'm just thinking background, I don't know, because I can't remember what we actually asked, the
Right.
pertinent information for their profiles, but I'm just thinking it'll just make us better prepared, so by the time that we actually get in there, it'll be so much more flowing and easy for us to go through the interview, right?
I just want to keep the barrier to entry low. Like, don't want to discourage them from coming by having them pre-submit stuff, but that's my inclination. I mean, they've already applied, so I suppose they're invested and it's there.
I just want to make it more efficient for us, just so it'll be faster too and all that, so.
That's fair.
Yeah, the application, actually, if you want to turn to that page. So again, the 4 questions we asked in the application were, why do you want to serve? What does a good leader look like? What activities or responsibilities have you been involved with at school? And what else would you like us to know? So,
Oh, yeah.
we would each just,
We'll have plenty of upfront with that, yeah.
yeah. So we would have enough material to cover, when we're talking to them. Did we separately approve a list of questions we would ask interviewees? Do we do that now, or do we do that
Yeah,
separately?
we can certainly do that now and make sure that we're on the same page. It'll just take me a few minutes to pull them up, but we can get that with no problem.
Okay.
Um,
I guess it just depends on when do we think we want to schedule the interview? Would it be at the next commission meeting in January?
No,
Okay,
so the
interim.
tentative start date for them is the next commission meeting, so we would need to schedule a special meeting between now and then. So it would need to likely happen either next week or the following week, but we would need to confirm with Nancy in the city manager's office to see when the conference room is available. We should be fine, but I would like both the conference and the council chambers to be available. That way we're not disrupting anything in here. And we'll do a debrief in here with the students before they enter your interview. That way they have a better idea as to what to expect, because a lot of them won't have any idea what they're walking into, that they're walking into a panel of 5 people. That can be a bit overwhelming for some people. Hopefully they'll expect it because they know who they're interviewing with, but I think once they are here and visualizing it, hearing it one more time before they step in, hopefully will help them digest all of that. So what we can do is we'll connect to see what's available, and then we'll send some possible dates to all of you for the next week or 2.
And what are the notification requirements for an interim meeting? You need to post it 24 hours in advance of the meeting?
It is 48 hours.
48 hours, okay. So I'm sure all of us have our respective, this is during the day.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah,
not-
most likely it
not
would be
in the afternoon.
5:30.
Oh, 5:30, okay. So as long as we have enough notice to sort of talk to the various people we need to talk to see if that time and date is available, then we could, hopefully, as many commissioners who can make it to the meeting will actually
Great.
come.
Yeah, probably 2 weeks from now, because we have to figure out multiple things and give notice to the kids, like you said, at least a week, right? So
Okay.
maybe not next week, but the following.
Okay. So it'll tentatively, as far as our schedule, will likely be the 18th, maybe the 17th of December. So you are getting close to the holidays by going
Yeah.
that week after. Otherwise, we can push for the 12th.
That's 10 days from now.
So it'll give us a couple days to work with the city manager's office about availability, and then a day to shoot off all the notifications.
I'm
which
just
is-
not sure when the school is over and if any of them gonna go somewhere during the holiday season, maybe better before the school is over.
Yeah, their break starts the 23rd.
23rd, okay.
Wow, that's late.
Well, now I'm second guessing myself, so let me double check.
Sorry, Commission, I just want to suggest, I am guessing their break starts on the 23rd, but you can probably assume most of them are high school students. Is that correct, Matthew?
Correct.
Which probably means that they probably have finals that week prior, so you may just want to consider that because that's, we all remember that cram time, right?
Yes.
Where you're studying for finals, and that may be challenging.
Yeah, the 12th probably makes more sense.
Yeah.
And why is only the 12th? Is that because of the availability of the
Just to give them ample notification.
Yeah.
That way we have a couple days to confirm availability with staff and then some
Yeah.
time to shoot out all the emails.
And it's almost 2 weeks, sounds all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
good.
So we'll wait for your dates by email,
Yep.
dates and times, okay? And it will happen in the room next door?
Correct.
Right, okay. Okay, do we have any public comments on the action item? Okay, so the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Now we're moving on to discussion item 4B. Staff will provide an update on the planning process for certain programs and events. Staff will also provide an updated status report on the RFP process for the recreation management software vendor.
Excellent. So we'll start off with Andy Shoup and Anna Casillas, who will be providing event and program recaps and updates. So whoever would like to go first.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name's Anna Casillas. I'm one of the Recreation Supervisors. I'm going to give you an update or a recap on Dia de los Muertos, as well as our fall youth sports programming. So looking at Dia de los Muertos, it was held on Friday, November 1st, from 5:30 till 8 at the Mission Playhouse. On our stage at the Mission Playhouse, we had a great lineup. We kicked off the evening with MIE's mariachi group from Roosevelt Elementary. This was a great start. Some of the kids were so in awe and excited to perform on such a big and professional stage. We got a lot of excited whispers. After that was the San Miguel Band, who provided a upbeat performance and had the crowd on their feet by the end of it, which was great to see. Rounding out the evening was Sol de Fuego Ballet Folklorico, which, again, really upbeat performance, great costumes, and that was our entertainment lineup. Moving out in our lobby, our feature was our altars. So we had our community altar, and newly added was our pet altar for this year. We got a lot of great entries. A lot of people were excited to submit their photos, and we got quite a lot of positive feedback on how much they love the altars. Outside, we had our Mission Plaza, and we had food for sale, such as tamales, pan de muertos. We also had face painting, so we had a professional face painter doing the half face for the event, as well as some of our staff doing a little face painting as well. We also had art activities and washable tattoos for something for the kids. One enhancement we have for next year is to have a bigger social media presence. That way we can draw an even bigger audience. Moving on, switching gears to our fall sports programming. This is our middle school youth program at Jefferson. Our two sports were flag football as well as volleyball. So this year, they got a chance to compete against different city leagues, and they had a chance to compete in the SMAF, so that's the Southern California Municipal Athletic Federation's San Gabriel Valley Tournament. So they were very excited to compete in this. Our flag football team actually garnered second place, so they got a trophy, they all got medals. All of them were very ecstatic. So we're looking forward to continuing building our sports program. Our next two sports is basketball in the winter and then soccer in the spring. Thank you very much. Any questions on any of those items?
Thank you so much for that summary. So you mentioned that there, obviously, more social media is always great, right?
Yes.
What was the turnout like this year for the event versus last couple of years?
It was a good turnout, but it was a little smaller. It happened to be the day after Halloween, and then it was also the day of the Dodgers celebration parade. So we think that also, impacted our attendance a little bit. So next year, it will not be right next to Halloween. So, and again, the social media will just help bring more and more people out to the event to enjoy the festivities.
Do we want to, at some point, throw on the agenda what our social media plan is for some of these events? I think we've got some experts on the panel, so it'd be good to just look it over.
Yeah, most definitely. So we actually don't oversee any of the social media within our department, but we can connect with the public information officer, and now would be a good time since we have a new person in that position to provide some additional details.
Yeah, does it make sense to invite the PI officer to come and talk to us?
Yeah, if it falls in times that she can make it out, that would be great.
Okay. Any questions?
Maybe just to comment on the Dia de los Muertos. I actually went and looked at the event. It was very organized. Yeah, it was very organized. I like the altars. And it was, I think the ones who were watching inside, they were pretty engaged because it looked like a good selection of performers. So, but yeah, I guess it was just really the volume of people, but I'm pretty sure you covered that already. But it was, for me, generally, if I were to look at it outside looking in, it looked like a pretty well-organized event, so.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we got great positive feedback about the entertainment, the whole event, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. Andy Shoup, I'm the Recreation Supervisor alongside with Anna. So I'll be here to talk to you tonight about a little update on the Fall Festival as well as the Turkey Trot event that we held. So our Fall Fun Festival was held on October 25th here in the Mission District. That's too high. It was an evening filled with fun. We had nearly 3,000 people joining us for the event. The event had a costume contest as well as a haunted zone, which was full of screaming all night long. So that was kind of the goal. Balloon artists, community booths, as well as trunk or treat booths were also lining the street. The costume contest was a success again. We had nearly 100 people participating. Staff made notes. I wasn't here for last year's event, but staff made quite a few notes on some changes they wanted to make for this year, which they then implemented, which kind of helped streamline the whole process and keep it nice and organized. So that was nice to see. Another change this year we made, again with some feedback that we had from last year, was the implementation of a fast pass type of pre-registration system, specifically for the haunted zone. So that allowed people to register ahead of time for a specific time slot to show up for. So that sold out pretty quick, and then the people who were involved in that or who chose to register for that were able to enjoy the rest of the event without having to wait in the long general access line. And then based on the success of the Fast Pass at that, we're also implementing it for the stand-up photo booth and trackless train rides, which will be at the holiday tree lighting, which will be tomorrow. That Fast Pass is also already sold out. So it seems to be popular and going well, so hopefully it continues that little trend tomorrow. Public participation at the Fall Fun Festival was really well. We had about 3,000 people, we think, in attendance, so the street was packed with participants. So next year, we're going to continue our same advertising efforts we did for the public, but we're going to change gears and focus a little bit more on advertising for community booths as well as trunk or treat booths, that we can get much more of them to kind of line the street a little bit better. So participation was good, now we just need more things for them to do. So I think that'll go pretty well for us. And then moving on to the Turkey Trot. It was our 47th annual event. We held it out at Vincent Lugo Park on November 16th. The first event started at 7 o'clock in the morning. We had overall 153 runners spread across the 1, 5, and 10K distances. Our smallest athlete was just over 1 year old, and she was super excited to get her medal for being pushed in her stroller the entire 5K. So that was pretty cute to see. So we were happy. We were happy for her and hope she returns. The races themselves wound their way through the neighborhood, kind of around Vincent Lugo Park. So we were able to send notices to the residents who were there, kind of letting them know, aside from the general, hey, there will be a run and be careful and don't park your car on the street. We were able to tell them, come on out and cheer on our participants. So we had quite a few of the houses on there have people in the front yard drinking their coffee, cheering people on. So that was fun to watch. And back at the park, we had 5 exhibitor booths, along with a DJ and a photo booth, as well as some athlete refreshments as they crossed the finish line. Unfortunately, we did have an incident in which 2 of our volunteers were involved in a car accident. I'd wish to elaborate more on that, but we can't here, but I can say that we are evaluating the event to see what changes we can make to improve safety of the volunteers, the staff, as well as the participants in general. In addition to those potential changes, for 2025, we're working on adjustments to the route itself, as well as in-park setup to further streamline the general event itself and take better use of the park. We're also seeking alternate vendors to reduce event costs, as well as continuing the trend of having our custom medals and race T-shirts for the event itself. But overall, we received very positive feedback from those who were in attendance, and it was a pretty beautiful day. So that's kind of the wrap-up for those 2 events, and if you have any questions on either one of those, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Well, thank you for that summary. For the Fall Festival, is that what it's called? Fall Fun Festival?
Fun Festival.
Mm-hmm. You said you sold tickets. Did we actually attach a price, or did
Forgive
you
me,
just
they
have to
were,
register?
Yes, you had to register. The tickets were free, as they will be for the trackless train and the photo booth tomorrow.
Okay, and did we use the new system that was put in place for the Playhouse this year to do that? Or what system was it that we used?
We used our existing recreation management software for that, to do that. It wasn't a huge volume, so we didn't need quite the assets involved with the Mission Playhouse ticketing system. And again, we'll do the same thing for tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, that's great. In terms of food trucks, did we have a good number of food trucks, and what were the lines like for that?
We had 3 food trucks. We originally scheduled 4 for Fall Fun. One of them I think his transmission went out. He was unable to show up at the last minute, so we ended up with 3. Their lines were, I would call them medium throughout the night. Every time I looked over there, they had a few, but they weren't stretching super long. So I checked in with them at the end of the evening, and they all kind of agreed that 3 food trucks was probably enough. They did good business, but wouldn't want to have any further competitors at the event. They did well, but not so much that we would want to add additional food trucks. So for next year, we'll continue the trend of having 3.
Question on the line for the haunted house.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually great. I didn't know that you guys had a pre-registration, which I'm pretty sure was very helpful. I have a question though, regarding the ones who were in line, were they at least informed for next year that, hey, you guys, it'll be easier if you did?
They weren't informed in an incredibly structured manner, but as the people who did register got to the front of the line, the people who were in the other line with them were kind of informed as to why there were 2 lines happening.
Okay.
So I think everybody who made their way through was aware that was happening, and then next year we'll be seeking it out.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks.
How long was the line just for general admission?
I believe at its absolute longest, staff said it was taking people about 45 minutes to get all the way through.
Not horrible.
Not horrible, but you can see the benefit to the pre-registration side of it, showing up and having 15-minute wait instead. So hopefully we can keep that trend going.
Yeah, I think it was a good problem to have because there were a lot of people. So I was surprised that they had that system, which was helpful, I'm pretty sure. But I don't think we can really control that unless we shorten the time that people are inside. You know what I mean? But that was good.
I also think having a line attracts people to the event as well, so I wouldn't get rid of it entirely. But do we think we might want to charge a fast pass fee for someone to reserve, like maybe $1, reserve early?
We've debated fees to some extent. I might have to defer to Matthew a little bit, but we've debated fees, and I think some of the council direction has been to try to avoid charging fees as much as possible. So I think as we add other amenities to the events, since they're brand new, that might be a good time to introduce a fee. I don't know how popular it would be to add a fee to an event or to a portion of the event that has previously been free, but there might be a way to add things to try to offset some of the cost of the new addition or the event itself.
Yeah, and if the commission has a consensus that a fee is a way to go, then we can certainly take that into consideration and connect with council on it as well. So it's not a no, that can't happen. It's just, it's preferred if the whole commission has one thought on that, whether it's charging or not charging, and that helps us with direction as well.
Were we under budget, on budget, over budget with the event?
The event came in just shy of $2,000 under the original budget.
Okay. So if we wanted to offset some of the costs, then we could do that. That could be a way in the future. Same with the winter, the tree lighting ceremony, and the train rides and photographs with Santa. Maybe that's a way also of offsetting the cost of that. Now, with respect to the food trucks, a subject near and dear to my heart, I know we've talked about this and we can't mandate any pricing, but is it possible to ask the vendors to just list the prices on the food truck? If the lines are fairly long, by the time you wait in line, you get to the front of the truck and you find out quesadillas are $18. Is it possible just list it there so then, you can make an informed decision if you have a couple of kids, whether or not you want to wait there, as opposed to having to wait that entire line to get and ask the cashier?
I think we can do that as we recruit food trucks. We can list on the application ahead of time. Can you please list your menu and your prices and your price point? And then they kind of know that we're looking for that kind of thing. Like you said, it'd be hard to mandate their prices, but letting people know what they might be is helpful. I think we can talk to them about that.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, I know that some people have big menus too, so it might not be worth putting all 20 things like on a board or something like that, but at least put your top 5 items or something. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Well, I feel like 5-10 years ago, the prices were listed on food trucks, and it's just recently where there's no transparency. And it's fine if you're just one person or a young couple, but again, if you're bringing kids to these events and everyone's hungry and it's cold outside, you don't really want to wait in a 30-minute line and find out it's too expensive for you to afford.
Mm-hmm.
It's just an idea.
No, I agree.
Yeah, maybe what could help is just to, and I've seen this in other restaurants as well, actual sit-in restaurants, where they pass out the menus. So, I mean, if they're waiting there for a while, right, they could just keep passing the menu back and forth. And that'll even help with ordering. By the time they get there, they'll order much faster, and then the line will be much more faster. It could be something as simple as that. But that'll help. But totally understand, especially with small kids, yeah, we don't want them to be cranky and hangry, right? So, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to speak against the little fee. Just want to mention a little bit, since we're doing all those events for the family fun, so we definitely wanted to encourage people to come to participate instead of against it. Maybe something like a little donation, like if they feel about it, instead of some kind of requirement fee. Just my 1 cent here.
Yeah, I agree. As far as putting a fee on something, like the train or the something that you've had in the past, like your sentiment of it might be funky to charge for it the following year when it was free the previous, it would have to be something that would be pretty like spectacular in my mind to be like, the city is charging me for this. It would have to be like more of a spectacle.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should avoid charging fees to families as much as possible. If you ever feel like there's a staffing shortage, though, or that, you may need to upgrade equipment for some of these events, that might be a way to raise funds for it. And it could just be a minimal amount, not $20 for photos of Santa. Mm-hmm.
Quick question on those events that we have with long lines. How far off towards the end of the event were the ones who won't make it shunned off?
It depends on the line, honestly, and the event itself. I know for Fall Fun, they were kind of monitoring how long people were taking to get through and kind of gauging it as the night went on. So like as of now, it's taking a half an hour. So if we close the line at 9, let's check back at 8, make sure it's still taking a half an hour, such like that. And I believe a half hour was the line limit at the end. I believe it was about a half hour before the event ended. They had a staff member at the end of the line letting people know that we have to cut it off. That way it was taking about that extra half hour to get through. That way our volunteers and staff could start cleaning up at the designated time. So it will vary kind of based on the line we're talking about, and then kind of let that be a live decision-making process the night of the event.
At least for the last event, how
For-
many do you think you guys had to not let in, and or how many were repeat, repeat participants of the event?
As far as repeat participants, it would be really hard to say. Since we weren't like tracking who was coming and going. There were just some of them were definitely getting right back in the line and going back through. We cut off the line about a half hour before it ended, and the line was getting shorter by that point. So it's hard to it's hard to say just how many people were turned away. I don't think it was many. The staff who was at the end of the line didn't report any issues dealing with upset people or anything like that.
Okay.
But it's something that we could probably easily track next time. Just give the staff a clicker at the end of the line and see how many people he turned away.
Yeah.
There might be a way to monitor that.
And the reason why I asked, I was thinking if they're still able to cater to everyone anyway, it might not make sense to charge. Because we're one of the things that we're trying to put a premium on is because it'll probably make their lives easier if they paid, right? But if everyone was catered to at the end of the event, I don't think putting a fee on it will make sense. So, but again, we don't know how it'll be next year, if it would have a better presence, a bigger presence. But if it were to me, the fee is great in terms of subsidizing other things, except that it'll be also great if it is to control the actual participants of the thing, yeah.
So just maybe moving on to the marathon or the turkey trot. I know you can't go into details. Now, the route does go on Del Mar, and it's close to my house. And Del Mar, I cannot tell you, it's such a dangerous street because people are racing to get to the 10 freeway. People are racing to get out from the 10 freeway. And the traffic lights are few and far between. So, and there are no stop signs really for a good stretch up until Valley, which is where the route is. So did the accident happen on Del Mar, or was it off of that, or?
Yeah, it did not happen on Del Mar.
Oh,
It was on a side street that was actually fairly quiet.
Okay. So if you revisit that route, just, I guess, make sure that there's ample postage. And, even the way that Del Mar is split up during the event, I think you leave 2 lanes open on one side, like the north-south lane, or the northbound lane is open, the south lane is closed. There's just, a small row of cones, maybe double up the cones a little bit more, because I do worry about the kids who are running and all the volunteers. And let me tell you, there are so many accidents in front of the firehouse, in front of the police station, in fact, and it's amazing how people drive these days. But let's just make sure there's better signage so that we're protecting people who come out to the event, volunteers and the people who are actually running the race.
Absolutely, we will be doing so.
Also, just one thing to comment on. It was, at least cleanup was very good. I planned to go, but I had my toddler on weekends, and I got there at 10:30. I was like, wow, it's so empty. You have the regular patrons of that park just playing. I was like, wow. And there's only the white tent that was left, but everything else, nothing on the floors. Everything was organized. I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's done. Kind of bummed out for a bit, but it's okay.
You didn't miss us by much. I think the last staff left just probably before that.
Yeah, that was good cleanup too.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And are we ready to move on to the RFP process?
Yeah, so the recreation management software RFP, that everything's closed out. It is going to council tomorrow under consent, and it's being recommended that Civic Rec or Civic Plus is selected. So the parent company is Civic Plus, but the recreation management solution is Civic Rec. So they're being recommended to to move forward through the process, which would mean that the city signs a contract and actually moves forward with implementing everything. The goal is to have everything done by the end of February, so in that way the spring session registration opens in March on Civic Rec. So spring will be the trial period to make sure that everyone's on board and understands how to use the system before we jump into summer. There will be ample marketing materials between the Discover San Gabriel publication as well as social media and our e-newsletter, and everywhere we can post it, it'll be posted. So in hopes that the residents are well informed before they go to register. What we don't want to have happen is they go to register and they realize they have to create a whole new account and go through all the process, which, doesn't sound like a lot, but if your time is limited, might be a bit frustrating. So we're trying to get ahead of a lot of those. Granted, council could decide to go with a different vendor or feel that, have a particular thought as to why they would not want to move forward, but we don't foresee that happening at this time. So barring that they approve it tomorrow, we will move forward. And the majority of the work will happen between the first month in December, and then kind of trickle through there. The first module that will be up and running is the class module, which is what we utilize the most as far as public facing, and then the rest will be the picnic shelters and the facility rentals. So that'll be the biggest change as far as the public is concerned, because the goal is to have them self-register for their picnic areas, and then it would still require staff approving it in order to move forward. And then the same for the facility rentals, where they'll be able to leave a deposit and fill out the application online, whereas right now everything's done on paper. But of course, we'll be making concessions for those who don't have the ability to fill it out online. It'll just look a little bit different for them. But otherwise, that's what we're moving forward on that process. Are there any questions before I move on to just one other program update?
Okay, so thank you for that. In terms of the registration system, UAT, is it before the summer? Because that's when hopefully residents will be able to register for swim classes.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, your question, UAT?
Is the user testing period
Oh,
going
yes.
to happen prior to the summer?
Correct, yeah, so it'll happen all throughout the spring session. And so any kink that's happening will be done before we hit summer. Yeah, so all of those summer classes and summer camp, swim classes will all be hopefully 100% by the time we exit spring into summer.
Okay, and so that's the aim, is to have it ready to go for the summer.
So it'll be ready by the spring session. So spring enrollment starts in March, and then summer enrollment starts in May. So we'll have a few months before our summer enrollment. So it'll be fully launched and available to the public in March. But I'm sure there'll be some unforeseen hiccups along the way.
Mm-hmm. Are you able to extract all the current data from families and plug it into the system?
Sure. So yes, fortunately and unfortunately, we've opted not to do that. So we are saving money by not doing that. And we've chosen not to import any data. So we could have imported like GL codes, we could have imported past rentals, but we will be hard keying in the GL codes and the facility rentals and picnic rentals. One, because we're saving money, and two, by not importing the resident information, we no longer have duplicate or triplicate accounts, so everyone will start fresh. So what we've seen is a variety of people have too many accounts in RecPro, so if we transferred all of that old data just comes with it.
I would suggest, just for PR purposes, just to make it clear that, yes, even if you have registered for a class in the past or rented space with us, you do have to create a new account.
Most definitely.
This is not because we've lost your information, it's not because there's a data breach or something like that.
Right.
It's just we have a whole new system.
Definitely.
And so put that on the website, again, front page, put that on the Community Services Commission page. Just make sure everyone knows that we're spending money on this great system and they just need to register their family.
Okay,
And then go through the steps of what it takes to register your family.
great.
Is it possible to have some of the old information tie up to the new accounts? I mean, in the future, because I know it's not going to be done right now, right? I don't
Correct.
know if you guys would hire interns in the future, but I feel like one of the great things of having this system is we'll be able to look at granular information about specific participants. Now we'll be able to get more insights on like, oh, this program is better for them, or et cetera, right? But it'll help if maybe we could still get to port that information over. And it's just something, I know we're saving with whoever this supplier is that will help us with this, but maybe it's something that, I don't know if you guys hire, for example, intern in the future to,
So you're saying instead of having the new company take the old data and upload it, at least take the old data and keep
Yeah.
it somewhere?
and then tie it up to the new accounts. Because that'll help us give better insight on a lot of things. Which one is more effective at what specific time? What time do they actually, when do they start applying in relation to a press release, for example, or the event deadline? When do they start looking at, stuff like this? And these are great insights that we can have. I mean, we're living in a data-driven world, right? It makes it so much easier for us to have these insights. And we already have this opportunity. All we need to do is just slap them in.
Yeah, so we can definitely, since our current system is a software that's like actually downloaded on individual computers, none of the data goes away. So even once we don't renew the contract with RecPro, we'll still have all of that data. So if we ever need to reference it, it'll still be there. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to tie the user information or like what they've enrolled for to the new system. Even if we pay them, it's my understanding that like the classes and stuff, that doesn't roll over. The only thing that they would have been able to roll over is like their home address, their essential login information, and then any rentals that we would have wanted transferred over. And the GL codes, like I mentioned, but that doesn't help the customer. But the actual classes doesn't get transferred, and or past payments or anything like that.
Okay. I'm pretty sure just because I've worked on these back ends for a while, and I'm sure Commissioner Davis would know that as well, because that's his background. But it's just simple tying up email addresses and notes. But it's a lot of work still. It's a lot of work. That's why. But it's really nice to have. It's just something to put at the back burner, I guess.
Sure.
Any other comments or questions to discuss?
I don't know software, and I wish you good luck.
Thank you. But if you have any feedback as the marketing is coming out, you feel free to not wait until the commission meeting. Just shoot me an email or a text message or a phone call, and we'll kind of pivot throughout that, because obviously if you're trying to enroll and you're having difficulties, then the general public is going to have an even harder time. So we really value that kind of on-the-spot feedback.
Absolutely.
So then the final item, just an update that we have for you, is our Right SG program, or our Right SG service. So that went to council on November 19th. So it was the first update that council had received on the service since its implementation, as well as a recommendation as to kind of how to move the program forward since it's met capacity. So what the council approved was to keep the services the same as far as the service hours of service to the public, so 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Sunday. And then for Right SG Plus customers, so it's now moving from 62 years of age and older is what we currently have. It's moving to 60 years of age and older to be more in alignment with surrounding cities. There are some cities that are 50 and over, and then there's some cities that are 60 and over. So we chose the 60 years and over mark. And then they currently have access to curb-to-curb transportation within the city of San Gabriel, and then a 5-mile radius for any purpose. But obviously that limits the amount of efficiency or duplicate or shared rides. So imagine if you're going from here to the Kaiser in Pasadena, there's not a lot of people that are probably sharing that route with you. So we're tying up one vehicle and one driver just for that one distance. Not to say that it's not valuable, but it does reduce the efficiency of the program and the number of people that can utilize it in a day. What council approved was to reduce it to 3 miles for medical purposes and then 4 select shopping centers. So there's one in Alhambra, so where the Sprouts is, and then there's one in Rosemead, and then Temple City, and then one other location. But the purpose of those hubs is that you could potentially go to the bank, get a haircut, go to the grocery store, do some other shopping kind of all at once, and then get picked up. And hopefully that will increase the number of shared rides. The other change is for the number of vehicle service hours. That's the times that vehicles are actually on the road. We currently have 625 hours per month. That goes up to 905 hours per month. So the program cost is currently approximately $49,000, and it will be going up to approximately $71,000 per month. And then we will be releasing an RFP within the next couple of months, since the contract with TransDev, which is the service provider for the program, is up in April.
The cars, just so I can understand logistics of it. So the cars themselves are owned by the city, but the operators are this TransDev program?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the difference between Ride SG V Plus and non-plus?
Sure. So Ride SG general riders means that you don't have to be a resident. You don't have to, the only requirement is that you're 13 years of age and older. And your ride must start and stop within the city of San Gabriel. Ride SG Plus means that you're 60 years of age and older and or a resident that's 60 years of age and older and or a person with a disability residing in San Gabriel. And then you would have that City of San Gabriel curb-to-curb service, whereas with the Ride SG general riders, they have the fixed bus stops that you would see, and then the virtual locations, virtual stops, and you're walking no more than 5 minutes to get to a location, so they don't have that curb-to-curb type service that the Ride SG Plus customers have.
So the vehicle service hours have increased to 905 for
Correct.
Ride SG Plus, not for the other riders?
For the entire service.
For the entire service, okay. And is there priority given to Ride SG Plus customers?
The simple answer is no, but there is some priority in the sense that if you have a dialysis appointment that you go to every Wednesday, then you would ask for a subscription service from our office. We would approve it and then send it to TransDev to have on their scheduling. So since the schedule only opens every 7 days, essentially, then they are the first ones to get their rides booked, so no one else can get that time slot, is essentially what it is. So they get priority in that sense, but otherwise, if a Ride SG Plus customer just wants to go to the grocery store, then they would book that on their own, kind of when the item arises. And if the time slot that they want is not available, then they would need to pick a different one.
Well, I think it's a great service. It came out during the pandemic because some of the bus lines were unable to provide curb-to-curb service, something like that, because of close contact between passengers. And so the city of San Gabriel came up with their own program, which is similar to what a lot of cities have, Pasadena and whatnot. I've used it a couple of times. It's been inconsistent, I think probably because of limited service hours. Some of the drivers are nice, some of them not so nice. So I'm looking forward to testing it out again once this goes into effect. When does it launch?
So it should be launching early January, but we are still working out the logistics. So you'll see all of the promotions as well. And then the Ride SG Plus customers will get additional notifications above and beyond just putting it on the website. That way they don't have to be on the lookout for it. It'll be kind of shoved in their face and they can't miss it, which is what we want, because they're the ones that are, the current Ride SG Plus customers will be the ones most impacted by the change, so we want them to know in advance.
And let's make sure that and I'm sure the council might have mentioned this, but let's make sure it comes out in Spanish and Chinese.
Definitely.
Just so the community is aware this is an excellent service and it's pretty much free, it's very affordable. Yeah, let's do the messaging on that. I don't know if social media is going to be that effective for Ride SG Plus customers, but let's use that anyway to target families and teenagers who need rides to their sports games or tutoring centers and whatnot. How do you plan to target the senior citizens who are using the SG Plus service?
Sure. So the current plan is to send a letter to their residents, because we have some of the old ones. And then for the new ones, those that have an app, they can get a push notification. And Rebecca may have some additional thoughts since we had a meeting earlier today. But those are the ones that we can immediately do. Potentially, we can add some notifications onto the vehicles as well, so when they're actively utilizing it, they can see it while they're in the vehicle. I will say it was a lot easier when we first made the transition from Dial Ride to Ride SG. So we may just need to be a bit creative. But actually, sorry, I take that back. We do have all of their addresses. We just need to import them into an Excel doc, because we just take them in on a paper application, because that's what works best for them. So yes, they will all get a letter, which was the most effective last time. And then following up with any additional questions that they have, which is really what we ran into last time during the transition, was just being available on the phone to answer the kind of frantic concerns, right? Because if maybe you're not reading the full message, you might not be understanding. So having that comforting voice on the other end to say, it's okay, and here's what it means.
Have we thought about advertising from the establishments on the drop-off points, for example? Because I don't know, that can help offset some of the costs. For example, hey, this barber shop, for example, hey, you can do a flyering inside. We'll make sure that the driver hands it over when someone comes in.
Oh, sure.
But
Yeah, so that'll be part of our business marketing campaign. So that'll be part of the general ridership. So really just pushing the Ride SG program as a whole. So that's something that we've been holding off on because we have really exceeded capacity. We're at, I think, a 32% failed search rate, which is why you have a hard time booking a ride at the prime times. And so they'll get a different set of posters to add into their windows, letters explaining what the service is, and they can share it with their customers and hopefully kind of spread the word by word of mouth as well. And then, of course, targeting the hotels, because hopefully they'll encourage the people staying there to utilize the service. I think it was mentioned that maybe people aren't looking for local transit when they're staying at a hotel, but for those that are, it'll be available, and hopefully they can walk them through the steps as well.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? Okay. Adrian, do we have any public comments on this action item?
We do not.
The time for public comment on this item is now closed. And we are moving on to item 4C, discussion of our work plan. Commission members to discuss the items on the work plan, and we've already provided, or the staff has already provided an update on the youth ambassador application, which is part of the work plan. Please note that the attached work plan has been replaced and updated by staff on December 2nd. The work plan reflects the changes that were made at the November 4th, 2024 commission meeting. Okay. So who would like to start our discussion about the work plan? Do we have any discussion items to address?
so, and I can't remember if it was only the last two sessions that we had the discussion, but one of the process discussions we had was that we could easily go through and just put in deliverables to each, right? So one of it is the list that I sent to Matt earlier today. One of it was the list of the programs that we currently have, which are mostly for youth and seniors, right? And I think once we get the information from the team regarding, for example, participants or turnout, et cetera, and then it'll help us make informed decisions of what probably works for the general public or for the 13 to 18 or the 30 to 50 that we need to come up with programs for, right? Because again, if we know, we get insights, and then we could easily brainstorm, make it a working session every time we meet.
Yeah, I think in the last session, we noticed just a fair amount of redundancy and stuff that we had already gone over, and it seemed like had been implemented, so it may look shorter, but that's just, we were just kind of trimming it up based on our discussion, and yeah, I think a decent amount of our conversation was thinking what perhaps other cities or organizations are doing for those with disabilities as far as programming goes. And I know that Commissioner Barantes had mentioned maybe coming back with that at our next meeting, but I still think that would be a really great addition for us to provide options for the city to consider. But I have nothing further to add to that.
And for the sake of, for Commissioner Shi and Commissioner Dong's information, if you notice, the team added next steps and completed tasks. So now it'll help us keep knocking out task by task, and then we would know where we're at a specific point, and then we could keep progressing with the work plan. So thank you for doing this, by the way.
No problem.
That sounds like a great idea. I think in the past, we would, have the usual work plan laid out, and we would look over it every meeting, which was on a monthly basis, and we didn't have a process of crossing out the items that were already fulfilled. For instance, Commissioner Shi had worked on a translation service, where she utilized the services of volunteer translators, and so she was great at doing that, but we weren't able to cross that out, so we kept on revisiting that one point. I like that there is now next steps, so are these like sort of highlights of what we should be focused on for the next meeting, or is this something to sort of?
Not necessarily, because it can, through the discussion, we could still have wider or more broad discussions, but it pretty much gives us an idea of where to start off from.
Okay, so for the next meeting, will we have some information about how we're utilizing WeChat, for instance?
Yeah, so we can certainly provide that information. I can connect with Ileana as our new public information officer. She's our assistant to the city manager / public information officer, so she wears many hats. We still have Jessica, who is our management assistant, I believe is her official title. I apologize if I'm getting it wrong, but she's the primary one who does the social media, so she may also be in attendance. Because the PIO also does the press releases for our events or for other important things happening. Their team also manages the fire and PD social media platforms. So amongst a variety of other things that they're doing. So to answer your question, yes, we can see if they can address that at the same time, because they would manage those platforms as well.
Mm-hmm. Do we have another platform? Because, WeChat is something that we would use for our Asian audiences. Mm-hmm. Is there another platform for Spanish speakers in the city?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can double check with them.
That would be great. And cross-promotion of city services, I would think that'd be a natural thing that we would do. We're a really small city. Is there a thought, or is there a way we can convene some of the individuals who would be involved in the various departments, so that there's a better way of connecting with each other, reaching across silos? Mm-hmm.
Sure. The one that we would typically work with the most really is PD and community development. Right now, the community development team is a bit short-staffed. They are down a manager, and their team only consists of 2 people. I think 2 full-time and a part-time staff, so I apologize. When you lose one, it limits their capacity. But the Public Engagement Bureau, I believe, is the official kind of division within police. They've really amplified their services and the amount of events that they attend and the way in which they're interacting with the public. So we've definitely been increasing our partnership with them on that. But we can foster that even further.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be great to know what other ways we could cross-promote our programs. I think adding more data to the discussion, as Commissioner Rodriguez mentioned, would be good. You know, sometimes it's, you know, I've been in the commission now for almost 2 years, I think. And it seems like the data that we collect is not consistent. So, you know, sometimes we'll know how many people are showing up to an event, sometimes we won't. So there's no way of sort of tracking if we're growing our audience or the audience is shrinking, also where the audience is coming from. From within the city of San Gabriel or the outside, the nearby cities, you know, so just sort of having more granular data, I think is what Commissioner Rodriguez was talking about, would be helpful for strategizing how we use city resources in the community services area. I know it does take time and money and, you know, as commissioners, sometimes we'll sit outside and hand out surveys, and sometimes the surveys are filled out and sometimes they're not. So, you know, it does require some amount of effort, but if there's an easier way for us to start collecting that data and using that, you know, more consistently when we have our meetings, I think that would be helpful to drive the discussion forward.
Sure.
And I think maybe we could put that in the next steps. Is the list that I sent, if we could help us fill that information in, which means then we could brainstorm it in our next meeting, for example, for item number 1 here for the work plan, right? Going to next steps, by the way, next steps number 2A, I just want to suggest, I'm not sure if we have it on for example, the tree lighting event, because I noticed that we do have scheduled events with PD, right, on a luncheon, I think, or something like that, or they just, I don't know if it's because I haven't been to one, but I saw in the schedule of events that police department is open to the public for any, I don't know if they wanted to say stuff.
Sure.
I don't know if
Are you
they.
referring to the coffee with the chief, I think?
That's
is what
right.
it's
That's
called?
right.
So we don't have involvement with that. Their department runs that, and I believe it's their community engagement bureau that takes the lead on it. But potentially we could have a booth or some informational materials at those events.
Right.
If that's
Or,
what
for
you're
example,
referring to.
I was thinking if they could have a booth, so now we could have that. So now, because as a resident, we won't really know, we'd only see the city versus the rest, right? So now, in as much as we know those are separate entities,
Sure.
it'll just be one for a resident, but it'll be great, for example, to go into tree lighting and you see a booth there for police officers and like, oh, you know what, we actually have a coffee with, etc. Now it becomes a more seamless experience for all the residents, like, oh, everyone's actually working together, and then you see all the communication flowing, and it's more of a holistic approach for the whole city, right? So stuff like that.
I just wanted to follow up on the translation program, and since it has been a really long time, I just want to see where we're at right now.
So we aren't pursuing that at this time any further. It was a great program, but when we don't have any workspace left for them, with the new staff that we've hired, there's no place to put a volunteer in a formal workspace without kind of putting them in the corner, which wouldn't be ideal. And then we also just have a larger number of staff that speak the languages that our residents need, verbally at least, which is a huge plus. And then there really hasn't been a need or a request for translations at this time. So we haven't continued that. We can potentially bring that forward, but it does require a larger amount of staff time than I think I initially anticipated going into it. But we are making sure that important events and programs that have a larger audience and a larger pool are translated as well. So that's one thing where even a year ago, all of our special events were not translated into all 3 languages. Well, 4 if you're counting English. But now they all are. So that's a kind of a prerequisite for staff as they're doing those. And I think that volunteer program was kind of a precipice for that. But we do contract that out to make that happen, to ensure that everything's translated properly. I think we realized when we were doing another program that we kind of have a trusted third party that we go through, that to where, you know, I can't double check Vietnamese writing, so I have to rely that whoever is doing it correctly. And that the company that we've been going with has done so successfully so far.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, the purpose of having that program was just providing an opportunity for the students to get involved. So whichever way we can provide those opportunities is good. And for this one student that we had coming in to do the translation, so we were able to like providing him some kind of certificate or a letter.
We didn't do a certificate. I can reach out to him to see if he'd be interested in one. I don't know that was a desire of his. I think he was more just looking for hours at that time. But you know, his mindset may have changed, but I can connect with him.
Yeah, and I want to see how the commission feels, like to give him some sort of a certificate. Even he was not requesting, you know, just to show our appreciation for him to come in and do the translation services. And then I noticed that we had some volunteers coming in for the turkey trot. Like we provided those volunteer opportunities. So like in the future, if you see any of those opportunities that we need students, participants, maybe let us know so we can pass along those information and let more students to get involved.
Sure, most definitely.
Thank you.
I also agree that we should provide a certificate to someone who's helped with translation services. It's definitely a skill that we need, and we're not paying for this, so it's wonderful that if we can just recognize their service. So this brings to mind our discussion about outreach to high schools. Were you or someone in the staff able to reach out to Gabrielino, and is that how we got those 6 to apply?
Yes.
Okay.
So for Gab High School in particular, I reached out to the former HERE Commission member, who's a staff member there, and so she was able to disseminate the information. I think she responded within the hour of me sending it. And then I connected with a district representative who sent the email directly and CC'd me, so I saw the big list of people directly at the campus, including the principal who it was sent to. So I think it was a much broader audience this time around.
So just sort of a segue to sort of an idea I had, provided that we don't violate the rules around the Brown Act. Since we do have an interim meeting, is it possible, if the commissioners are interested, for the commissioners maybe after that to just have like a small get-together? Either, you know, we can potluck or we can go to a local bar around here and support local business. You don't have to show up. Obviously, we won't talk about city business, but it would be great if the current commissioners could come, and we can invite the past commissioners as well. You know, the ones who left us this year, for instance. You know, it would be great just to get everyone together. Not necessarily something that is for the staff to organize, but maybe if there's a distribution list that we could use, and we could just sort of email it out and say, hey, it's a holiday event. Please come out. You know, love to see you. Just so if we're going to come out anyways, again in December, we can just, you know, have a little get together that's tagged on to that.
Yeah, that's perfect. We can certainly provide emails, or if you even wanted to send out an invite, we can pass it along to the former commissioners. Yeah, and as long as there's no city business discussed, as you mentioned, there's no problem. We would just adjourn the meeting, and then you would continue with that.
Okay. I would be happy to pass that along, or I can either create the invite and send it to staff, or you guys can send me the distribution list, and I can just put that together on my own. And we can talk amongst ourselves about what makes sense in terms of venue, and we don't have to stay for the entire night. You know, obviously we all have families, but it would be nice just to get together for a little bit. Yeah. Okay, anything else in terms of the work plan? Adrian, do we have any public comments on this action item?
We do not.
All right. Okay, so the time for public comment on this item is now closed. Moving on to commission reports. Each commissioner may address the Community Services Commission and public on matters of general information and/or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences and/or meetings they have attended. Starting with Commissioner Shi.
I don't have anything to speak about, but I want to say thank you to commissioners and Chair Dong for carry on this commission and in such a great way. When I was absent for like 3-4 months, I was sorry about that, and I try to be more active now. Everything is going back to normal. Thank you.
I wanted to say that you don't have to apologize for it. Our commissioner is a proud mother of an infant, 2-month-old, and she should have as much time as she needs to set up your house and.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. We were happy to do it and just happy you have a healthy family. That's all, yeah.
Okay, moving on to Commissioner Lotz.
The only thing I want to say is I'm really happy to see that wood chips were added to the playground at Smith Park. Yes, we got some more safety going on over there, and then also that the sandy playground, basically the handle to get onto the structure was almost completely ripped off, but they added brackets basically to put it back in place. So I know that because it's my business that playgrounds are extremely expensive and they cost cities a ton of money. So these are very inexpensive ways to make them safer, and I'm just happy to see that there was some implementation on that. So yeah, that's the only thing I have to add.
For me, I guess it's really appreciating the working relationship with the team and the commissioners. I feel like we put on a lot with our suggestions and all that, and they've been very welcoming. And it makes me feel good that we're part of this and we're trying to actually do something, and they're carrying it out, and I see it in the events too, so that's great.
Also want to echo that. I think the commission staff, Matthew, Adrian, everyone else, you guys make us look so good. Putting together our minutes, writing out what we have to say for every meeting, again, addressing all of the comments and questions that we have. And there's just so much that you are tasked with. So it's really amazing that every year you're able to put out this huge program. And continually innovate too. And so I want to say that I really appreciate that. I have nothing to report on my end in terms of conferences and or meetings. I look forward to attending the event tomorrow. I don't know if I'll stay for the Santa photos, but I'm so happy that there is now a system for parents to just, fast pass it in some ways, or at least know what time they should start getting in line. I think that makes a lot of sense, given the fact that most of us have smartphones and that the technology is already there. So it's a low-hanging fruit in my end. Okay, and now staff comments. Staff members have the opportunity to address the commission and public on matters of general information and or concern.
So we just have a couple of Mission Playhouse items. So we have been fortunate enough to be partnering with the LA Music Center. Sorry, I don't know why I couldn't think of the name for a second. I apologize. So they are providing performances for 2 events over at the Mission Playhouse free of charge. So they're covering that fee. The first one is on December 15th, which is a performance through Willing Company, Scenes from A Christmas Carol. It's a 45-minute performance, and it'll be on the Mission Playhouse stage. And it starts at 2 p.m. The performance starts at 2, again, is about 45 minutes, and then directly after that, members of the public will have the opportunity to either do photos with Santa, and then, or do cookie decorating. The photos with Santa do have a charge, but they'll come with a Mission Playhouse custom frame as well that they'll get to take home with them. The photos are 10 for 1, 20 for 30, and then 30 for 5. So they can take more home than they would at the tree lighting, and it's a bit more of a relaxed atmosphere than the tree lighting. So if they miss the photos at the tree lighting, they'll have a second opportunity. There will be a cost, but at least it's a secondary option. The cookie decorating, I don't have the fee on that just yet, but that will be a fairly minimal fee, and all of the supplies will be provided to them at that time. The event does say that it's for ages 5 and up, but of course, if a younger one is with their parents, then they can join the event as well. The 5 and up is really just intended for seating purposes. That way, obviously, since it's fixed seating, we need to know how many people are going to be in attendance. But considering that it's a 1,400 seat theater, we should be fine. The next one in the family series is in January, and that one, let me just pull that one up. Is Diavolo, and it's called Architecture in Motion Presents Trust. So essentially, they're doing like the wild acrobatic movements, and they're jumping and leaping off of, for this performance, like general household items. But their larger performances, they would be doing like giant ladders that they're doing acrobatics off of. Both of these will have an interactive component to where a child or children will be brought up to the stage for the interactive component. This one doesn't have any additional items other than just photos with the crew after their performance is done in front of the Mission Playhouse. So that would end our free series. And then in February, which is the 7th of February, from 7:30 to 9, there's a performance of the Amanda Castro Band. So we've actually hired the Amanda Castro Band to do the performance, and it's the first item that the Mission Playhouse is actually presenting. So everything is going back to the Playhouse. So when you purchase a ticket, that revenue is going directly back to the Playhouse rather than through a third party who's renting the Playhouse, and we're getting revenue that way. We're getting revenue through ticket sales directly. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. But all of the information is also listed on the missionplayhouse.org website.
Any questions or comments? Do we think it's duplicative to have the photos of Santa at the Mission Playhouse and then again tomorrow?
Yeah, so we went through the same dilemma, but I think where we landed is the fact that it'll be a different environment and that there is a cost associated with it, and essentially they are getting an elevated service for that than they would at the tree lighting. That's where we felt that it kind of warrants it at that point. If we were offering the exact same thing, I agree, it wouldn't necessarily be worth it. But hopefully they'll find the value once they're there in these paid photos.
And this is the first year we've done this?
Correct.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, so the next regular Community Services Commission meeting will be held next year on Monday, January 6, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. Information regarding matters to be considered at each meeting will be available on the Friday before the Community Services Commission meeting on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. This regular meeting is now adjourned at